Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this open house event for the recruitment for the Digital Markets Unit at the Competition and Markets Authority. My name is Victoria Mason. I'm an Assistant Director here in the DMU, and I'm going to be chairing this evening's session. I'm going to start with a little bit of housekeeping. So we are running this as a Teams meeting. So if I could ask that people keep their videos off and their microphones off, it just helps for the panel and manages our bandwidth. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that we are recording this session, so it will be available to watch back later, and that will be posted up on the CMA's YouTube channel. As a quick overview of what we are going to cover today, I'm going to pass in a moment to Will Hayter, who is the Senior Director here in the Digital Markets Unit, and is going to give a little bit of an overview of the current priorities and what it's like to work in the DMU at the moment. We're then going to move on to a panel discussion with a number of colleagues and current team members. They're going to talk a little bit about their life, their roles, and their background. And then we've also got a Q&A session. We're hoping to have around 30 minutes for Q&A. So if you could put any questions that you might have into the chat, please do like any questions that you want to particularly hear answered, and we'll look to prioritise them. I did want to flag, though, that we will be hearing from Charlotte and our recruitment team. So it might be worth, if you've got specific questions about the recruitment process, just holding off, hearing what Charlotte has to say and seeing if she answers your question outright. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass over to Will Hayter, who's going to introduce himself and talk a little bit about the Digital Markets Unit.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. As Vicky says, my name is Will Hayter. I'm Senior Director for the Digital Markets Unit, so responsible for the build-up of the unit and also involved in most of the CMA's digital markets work in one way or another. So a couple of things from me. I mean, I would say this, but I really do think it's such a good time to join. And I want also to share my sense of the fact that you will do genuinely fascinating and important work here. So just to take you through those couple of thoughts in a bit more detail. So as this first slide is intended to demonstrate, this really is a great time to join the CMA's work on digital markets. There's an awful lot going on, as the slide shows, and this is just a bit of a sample of recent news. Most obviously, in the middle there, a bill has been recently introduced to Parliament to help the CMA tackle issues of market power in digital markets. And there is an awful lot to do as we prepare to put the new measures in practice. So there's a real opportunity here to be part of setting up this new framework from scratch and figuring out how it's going to work. Personally, I find that a lot more stimulating than just slotting into a fully formed steady state team, and hopefully you'd agree. But we also do have a range of projects going on using our existing tools, and those are again flagged in some of these headlines here. So we do market studies into a whole range of markets, and we already use our current enforcement tools to try and get results as well. So, for example, through the Competition Act or through consumer law. And then just on the next slide, I wanted to share my sense of why I think what we do is both really interesting and important. And there's a few ways I think this is the case. So firstly, I think it's always fascinating to understand how markets work, what results in good or bad outcomes for competition and consumers. But I think it's extra interesting here because, of course, technology is changing the way people communicate, buy things and do business. And just think of the sectors involved and the range of those. So, for example, search, social media, app stores, online marketplaces, and more. This might be a bit of a simple thing, but I at least find it very stimulating to work on things that are part of public debate. AI being the obvious example here. So the team there on our initial review that we started a couple of weeks ago is busy trying to understand a topic that is appearing in the news every day in a whole range of sources, and as part of that work is talking to world-leading experts to try and understand what's going on there. Plenty of variety, I think, is an important part of the picture as well. So that the work that we're involved in includes working with government on the bill and the parliamentary processes that goes through, talking to a whole range of stakeholders, businesses, consumer bodies and others on all of the cases and pieces of work we're doing, or it might involve working on specific projects or cases like the AI one, like the various investigations that were flagged on the previous page. And I believe that what we do here really matters. Now, this may sound a bit idealistic, but our mission here at CMA really is to support people, businesses in the UK economy. And I personally take an awful lot of pride in working in the public interest and in markets that affect pretty much everyone in the UK in a number of ways. Really importantly, you get to work with some amazing people. So firstly, the great people of the DMU, some of whom you're going to meet shortly and hear what they're up to day to day, but also lots of people across the CMA. So those might be economists, they might be data scientists, lawyers, policy experts, and more. You've also got our fellow regulators in the Digital Regulation Cooperation Forum. So those are the Financial Conduct Authority, Information Commissioner's Office, and Ofcom, with whom we have a whole range of projects going on across a whole set of topics. Plus, we've got world-leading experts that work with the CMA as part of our digital experts group that we set up fairly recently, and that's a fantastic opportunity as well. And finally, we're making a big push on building our presence outside London, including in particular our new digital hub in Manchester, and you're going to hear more in a moment from colleagues working in other offices. So in short, great time to join, tons of interesting and important work to do. Looking forward to hearing the questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Will. I think that was really helpful and interesting. If we just move very quickly on to the next slide. Obviously, as most of you will be aware, because you're joining our event today, we do have a number of open vacancies. So before we move on to the panel discussion, I just wanted to highlight the number of roles that we do have available. We'll also return to this at the end and share sort of a link as well for you. But just as a reminder, we've got a number of posts from Principal Digital Markets Advisor through to Programme Support Officers that you'll hear from in a moment on the panel discussion. We'll be able to speak to a range of the work that will be conducted within those roles. So please do drop any questions that you might have into the chat and I can follow up with them afterwards. But I'm just going to quickly pass over to them and ask them to introduce themselves and to tell you a little bit about their backgrounds and what they're doing within the Digital Markets Unit. So I'm going to pass to Robin first. So Robin, please feel free to pop your video on and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, evening everyone. My name is Robin Mann-Boulders and I'm currently a Principal Advisor working within the Digital Markets Unit. My educational background is in law, and so I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Dundee, which was in dual qualifying Scots and English law, and I followed that up by working and carrying out a master's degree in international competition law and policy at the University of Glasgow. Now, probably unlike some of my colleagues, my entire career has been working within the CMA. So I joined the CMA at the back of 2017 as a legal intern. And in that time, I have progressed through both grade bandings as well as working in a number of different teams. I had the opportunity to work on some really exciting kind of cutting edge projects. That includes the online platforms and digital advertising market study, which was part of making the recommendation to the creation of the DMU. I've also had the opportunity to work on the Privacy Sandbox investigation, which looks at Google's announcement and proposition to deprecate the use of third-party cookies, which is essentially the entire infrastructure for how the web is funded. So some really kind of cutting edge and interesting policy areas. I suppose since joining the Digital Markets Unit, just in thinking about what I've done since then, I have led on the kind of the beginnings of the CMA strategic engagement with the DRCF, or the Digital Regulation Cooperation Forum, that Will referred to earlier. Now, in that role, my role was to support one of our directors in terms of providing strategic input across a range of work streams, whether that's about the teams working across the four regulators on algorithmic processing. They've led to a number of discussion papers that have been published, through to more operational about actually how do we work more closely together to create both coherent outcomes for businesses and consumers in terms of making sure they have clarity about how our remits interact, or kind of how we tackle complex issues like algorithms together. My current role since kind of leaving that, and I've recently transitioned into a new role, which is leading a team that focuses on kind of how we build our evidence base, and thinking quite strategically about the activities that we might need to carry out between now and the regime coming into force. And that might be about kind of prioritizing and thinking through how we might tackle issues in digital markets. On a day-to-day, that includes developing frameworks for overseeing the wider program of activities that we might want to do. So that's quite a lot of project management, project planning, risk management. But there's also a range of kind of potential opportunities to lead on analytical areas, thinking through kind of really thorny and complex issues and how we might use the new tools to tackle the issues that we've identified in markets and that we think could be best tackled by the DMU's new powers. And I will hand over to.
Well, thank you, Robin. I'll come back to you in a moment with a question, but before I do, if I could just ask Matthew, if you could just introduce yourself and your role. Robin, feel free to stay on camera while Matthew speaks, and I'll bring the panel together at the end.
Cool, thanks, Vicky. Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Matthew Alsop. I've been a digital markets advisor in the DMU for the past year. Before that, I studied computer science at university, which really got me interested in this crossover between new technology and interesting societal and regulatory issues. I was then a data analyst at a consultancy for around a year before joining the CMA. And since I've been in the DMU for the past year, I've been across a range of really interesting and varied work streams. So I spent a lot of my time on our privacy sandbox work, which Robin introduced a moment ago, which is a really interesting example of us using our existing Competition Act powers to intervene in digital space. And my role on that has involved a lot of stakeholder engagement. So thinking strategically about who in the digital advertising market do we want to speak to understand their concerns around Google's proposals, from publishers to advertisers, planning out engagement, plan of engagement for that, arranging those calls, then leading and chairing those calls, and really seeking to delve into their expertise and build an understanding of their perspective of the market and pick out key areas of concern that we could then raise with Google in our calls with them, and we could feed into our overall assessment. Outside of Privacy Sandbox, I've also been involved in a variety of other work streams, including DRCF, providing strategic input there, coordinating across internal stakeholders within the CMA, and also colleagues at the ICO, FCA, and Ofcom. And I'm also starting to do a bit of work feeding in insights from our Privacy Sandbox case and other digital cases into our wider strategic thinking as we prepare for the digital markets unit regime.
Thank you very much, Matthew. And can I also now pass to Ting to introduce yourself and your work?
Thanks, Vicky. So hi, everyone. My name is Ting, and I joined the CMA's delivery graduate scheme last September. And I'm doing my first rotation here in the digital markets unit. And before that, I studied economics at university. So I have mostly been working with the operational readiness team in the digital markets unit, which has involved supporting our recruitment campaigns by brainstorming ideas for our outreach and social media campaigns, working with teams across the CMA, such as the recruitment team and the external communications team, to draft and prepare recruitment materials, doing some thinking and drafting proposals for how we could design an internship or run our recruitment campaigns to support our objectives to ensure that our team is representative of the UK's diversity, as well as developing learning opportunities to help our team build their skills and expertise, which I have personally found helpful. These are examples of work that you might get involved in as a project officer in the digital markets unit. And also in my time at the DIU, I have also worked on a market investigation to support the CMA's digital casework, which involved tasks such as reviewing internal documents from firms to gather evidence, drafting minutes for various meetings, and arranging meetings with external stakeholders such as large tech firms to build our understanding.
Perfect. Thank you to Robin, Matthew, and Ting there for those introductions. I'm going to follow up with a couple of quick questions for you before we move on to Charlotte's piece around recruitment and then into the Q&A. So I can see that at least one question has gone into the chat. Please do put any questions that you might have into the chat, and we'll pick those up during the Q&A. But to ask the panel here a couple of questions. So Matthew, you mentioned that your degree was in computer science and that you've had a data analyst role in the past. We're very interested in hearing from people from a range of different backgrounds, including people with more technical experience. Could you tell me a little bit about how that experience during your degree and your previous roles has helped you? What were the transferable skills into this role?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. So I hadn't formally studied competition law or economics before joining the digital markets unit. I just found it a really interesting digital policy question, which is why I wanted to get involved. And my the skills I picked up on my degree have definitely, come in handy. I guess the technical knowledge and insight from studying computer sciences let me get involved in the review of technical submissions on our Privacy Sandbox case, and given me an understanding to be able to delve into what Google are telling us, because often we're speaking to developers, software developers on these calls with these tech firms or others in the market, and having that background and sort of wider market insight allows us to really kind of offer them good questions and pick out important insights. And then I guess it's not just the technical sort of skills though from the degree that come in useful. Maybe in terms of transferable skills, I think research and analysis is one of those things that certainly at university during my dissertation, I would spend a lot of time pulling information from a variety of academic papers and relevant people in the industry, and then analysing that and synthesising it into a viewpoint that I would then try and communicate concisely to various parties. And that is exactly the kind of skills I'm now using on Privacy Sandbox, where instead of academic papers, I'm reading technical submissions and hearing from different market participants and trying to bring together different perspectives and sort of synthesize the CMA viewpoint.
Thank you, that was really helpful. Robin, I'm going to ask you a question about location. So you mentioned that whilst you're in London with us today, you are based in the Edinburgh office. Could you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be based in an office outside London and what the culture is like within those offices?
Yeah, so I started out my career working in the London office as an intern. I only really moved up at the back of 2021. I suppose my reflection at the time was that COVID was a real leveler in terms of making sure that kind of we operated with a kind of cross-office digital first approach. And that in itself was really quite good. I suppose the benefits of working in the Edinburgh office in particular is that you work in a cross-office environment. So we work in the HMRC government hub, which means that our offices are adjoined to other directorates, both in terms of central government as well as our colleagues in the Information Commissioner's office. So particularly when I worked on the DRCF, it was quite handy that my direct counterpart in the ICO actually worked in the office right next door. So that was quite real luck that we both ended up working in the Edinburgh office for that. I suppose some of the other things is because you have that choice about really where and what location you want to live. There's a kind of real opportunity to think about. You don't have to move to London, or you don't have to live in London to make a successful career in the civil service. And there's certainly no kind of like preconceived notion that to get a promotion you have to be in the kind of London office to kind of progress. I personally got my most recent promotion whilst I'd already moved up to the Edinburgh office. So in some sense, I am kind of a case study, and it's absolutely possible. And there's a kind of real commitment to making sure that people have access to really exciting work. I suppose in terms of thinking of my team work across all three out of the kind of existing locations where DMU colleagues are working. So we have colleagues working in the Edinburgh office, we have colleagues working in the Manchester office, as well as the London office, who are all kind of working in the kind of thinking through how we best prepare for day one of the regime. So it's a real opportunity to kind of be based on where you are and where your home life is as well.
Thank you, Robin. I should emphasise that all of these roles are available in all of the CMA's locations, so please do consider if you're interested in opportunities outside of you. So Ting, I'm going to come to you now in terms of learning and development. So you mentioned a little bit about training, and obviously you're on the graduate scheme here at the CMA. Could you talk about the learning and development opportunities that have been available to you and what you valued in that?
Yeah, of course. I would say there is a wide range of both for formal learning opportunities, but also on-the-job development opportunities, and we have dedicated time to spend on our development. So in terms of formal learning opportunities, earlier this year in the DMU, for example, we had the chance to attend a 2-day course organized by the Centre of Competition Policy at the University of East Anglia to build our understanding of digital markets and specific features that make it more likely for competition issues to arise in these markets. And we also have lectures that we can attend delivered by like external speakers who are leading thinkers on different subject matters. For example, we had one on synthetic media and generative AI. And there's also training available to develop our transferable skills organized by the CMA's Academy. And the CMA also offers support to undertake external qualifications such as postgraduate diplomas or professional qualifications with funding available and also study leave. From my experience, the team is very supportive of your well-being and development, which I really value. So, for example, there was some work that I was interested in getting more exposure on, and after discussions with my line manager and others in the team, they were like very supportive to ensure that I get those opportunities that I find helpful for my development and career path.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of the panel. So I'm going to ask you to quickly switch your cameras off, and I'm going to ask Charlotte to come on screen now. So Charlotte is one of our recruitment advisors, and if I could ask you to introduce yourself, Charlotte, and also just talk a little bit more about the recruitment process itself.
Yes, thanks, Vicky. So I'm Charlotte Wilmington. I've been with the CMA just over 6 years now, and I'm one of the recruitment managers here. We thought it would be helpful to provide some more information about the recruitment process to help candidates making applications. So we use the success profile recruitment framework in line with the rest of the civil service, and the elements that are being used in this recruitment process are behaviours and experience, and more detail can be viewed in the supporting candidate packs. So starting with the applications process, much of this is set out in the candidate information pack, but some of the key things to note that you will be required to make your application via civil service jobs. And if you haven't made an application on civil service jobs, then you'll need to create an account. We recommend that you follow the instructions in making your application, and there will be requirements to include your employment history and to write a personal statement. Your application is anonymised, and you will get prompts when completing your application on which information to redact. So thinking about the personal statement, you'll need to review the essential criteria listed under the person specification in the role profile. And as part of your personal statement, you'll need to think about how you're going to evidence how well you meet each criteria. And you can label each criteria that you're answering, because at the sifting stage, you're going to be assessed and scored against the skills, knowledge and experience that you've demonstrated in your personal statement, and how well you're outlining that you're meeting the essential criteria. So it's really important that you allow yourself enough time to prepare your application. There is a useful document uploaded with the advert called Candidate Guide, Additional Tips and Info. Now that does include more information about the recruitment processes and also tips for making your application. Also gives you some quite useful examples for the STAR technique. So the STAR technique is situation, task, action, result, and it's quite a good format to think about when writing your personal statement. And you should think about providing specific examples of how you have previously demonstrated each criteria being assessed, using examples from maybe your previous work history or academic history. So we suggest that you structure your personal statement clearly. You can use the separate paragraphs for each essential criteria. And really thinking about how you're explaining the situation, the task that you had to do, the actions that you took, and what the result was. And don't forget to talk about what you did rather than what we did, so that we can understand exactly your role. So those successful at the SIFT will be invited to attend an interview and undertake an assessment, maybe an intro exercise or written exercise, depending on which grade of role you're applying for. And everything will be assessed by a CMA staff member, and the successful candidates will hear from us shortly after. And also candidates not being invited to interview will also hear from us. So everyone will receive notification of their scores and outcome at the SIFT. So more information about the behaviours is in the candidate pack, with various helpful links for you to read over. I really would encourage you to read the candidate information pack. And if you don't find that your questions are answered, by all means contact recruitment at cma.gov.uk, and we'll make sure we put the recruitment email address in the chat. Final thing I just wanted to mention before I hand back to Vicky is any candidates that would require some reasonable adjustment, please do make it known on your application, right to recruitment. Any additional support that you require, application and interview stage, the recruitment team will do their best to help. We want to ensure that all candidates feel as much supported as possible during every stage of the selection process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. So we're going to move into the Q&A session now, and I can see that there are a number of questions already coming through in the chat. Please do read through those. Please do like the ones you'd like us to answer. We will try to get through as many as possible, prioritise those with a number of different likes against them. If I could ask the panel and for Charlotte as well to just stay on camera, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look through those questions and pull out some ones that I'm keen for you to answer. I was going to make a start with a couple of more recruitment-based questions. So Charlotte, these ones I was hoping that you could pick up. There's a number of people that have asked in the chat about the distinction between the principal digital markets advisor and the senior digital markets advisor, and also whether or not it is possible or desirable to apply for both roles. I wondered if you could give your perspective on that, and then I may be able to add a little bit more detail as well.
Yes, thanks, Vicky. So they are different by grade. So the principal principal advisor is of grade 7, and the senior advisor is an SEO. So they are different grades, and the responsibilities will vary, and so will the essential criteria for each role. If you are interested in both roles, or you're not sure which sort of grade your experience might sit within, we would recommend that you apply for both roles, so that you can be in, the candidate pool. You can be scored for both roles and any roles of interest.
Thank you. And I wonder, actually, Robin, can I ask you to come in a little bit as well, thinking about somebody who has been promoted within the DMU, obviously from the HEO Digital Markets Advisor to the Principal Digital Markets Advisor. Are you able to offer any reflections on the difference between your role currently and what you'd envisage a Senior Digital Markets Advisor doing?
Yeah, and I suppose in some sense it's quite helpful kind of thinking about having moved from being a higher executive officer or the kind of like digital markets advisor role to a principal one. The way that I would articulate it, or the way that I would try to explain it, is that as a HU or as a kind of digital markets advisor, your role very often is to support like a member or a principal advisor on your team with a particular work stream. So you will have responsibility for supporting the team with one or two work streams or kind of particular areas of responsibility, and those might be process related. So it might be about thinking through, like in a future SMS designation assessment, thinking through how do we coordinate and ensure that we have the right evidence in the right place, for example, and really kind of focusing on kind of ensuring that the team has everything they require, and you support on that. I suppose as a principal advisor, and particularly reflecting on my current role, I lead a broader team of people who are looking at a number of different issues. And so I'm required to have oversight of that in terms of making sure that we are tackling the right issues at the right time, to making sure that kind of where we have kind of interactions with other teams, that we consult, engage with them and feed into their work streams at any various points. But there's a significant jump in terms of the level of responsibility you have for making sure that both the kind of the actual work is delivered, and so the team delivers against the kind of overarching objective that you're working towards. There's also a level of responsibility in terms of making sure that you get the right steers from seniors at the right time, and having that judgment about when and how that is best achieved. I suppose there's kind of they're slightly different in nature in that sense, but it's got with a sense of seniority, comes with a sense of experience, seniority, and the types of skills and experience that you have that indicate that you can demonstrate that.
Thank you. So hopefully that answered that question, but please do, if anybody has any follow-up or would like some clarification, pop a further question into the chat. I wanted to pick up on one of the other ones that's received a number of likes, which is around whether experience or previous studies in economics, law or computer science are required for the current roles. And I think I would just start by saying no. And also, whilst the rest of the panel provided an introduction to themselves, I didn't introduce myself or my background, and so this is probably an opportunity for me to say that I have none of those experiences from an educational background. I studied geography and have a PhD in environmental policy, so very much not competition law or economics, but I do have transferable skills, and that is what I sought to demonstrate in my application and what I've brought to the role. So whether that be research skills, the ability to analyse information, wherever that's obtained, that transferable element is the key thing that we're looking to be able to demonstrate. The ability to build relationships with stakeholders, the ability to think strategically, the ability to develop recommendations. And I wonder actually if I can also bring Will in at this point to sort of talk about the types of skills that you're looking for from the team as we grow and expand, and whether or not you've got any reflections on that specific question.
Yes, thanks very much, Vicky. And actually, I also didn't say anything about my background. I have a history degree, so also not a lawyer or an economist. And I started life as a strategy consultant. And so it's a few years ago now, but I did have to make those same arguments about how the skills I developed during my education and then during my first consulting role were transferable to this world. And it seems to have gone okay so far. And I mean, I think the point is that we are really looking for a mix of experience and a mix of types of skills and expertise. Building on what we've got in the team already. So as you've heard, we have got people who are lawyers, we've got people who are economists, we have people who are who, like Matthew, have more of a computer science background or other technical backgrounds. So we already have a bit of that blend. We're looking to kind of keep building on that. So we'd be interested in, as Vicky said, a broad range of transferable skills. Knowledge of digital markets, tech, etc. is helpful, but again, not essential if you can demonstrate some of the other skills. So really looking for a blend and for building that over time, and looking to bring people in with with an appetite to learn and to take advantage of the kind of training experiences that Ting described, and sort of build towards this task we have of delivering new functions under the DMU.
Thank you very much. And hopefully that also addresses, I know there are a couple of questions from people who are looking to understand whether or not these roles are suitable for people changing careers. Again, I think those transferable skills are the key points to emphasise there. Sticking with questions around the types of roles and backgrounds, I saw that there was a question about the principal advisor roles and whether or not they were all for the programme office. And also there was a question around the background that we're looking for the project officer roles. And I wondered, I can probably pick up on a couple of those, and I may also ask Ting for her insight based on her operational role at the moment, and because she's been involved in the recruitment. But just to pick up on that programme officer question, so the principal digital markets advisor, the job advert sets out a number of different areas of possible responsibilities, one of which may be the newly established programme office within the team. However, there are a number of other areas that we would also expect people to have the opportunity to work on, including the work that Robin has already outlined in terms of building our evidence base. We also have a strong horizon scanning function, and we are also looking to support the wider CMA activity in terms of existing casework. So there's a range of opportunities, and we're looking for people with a range of different skills for that. So hopefully that picks up on that question. And in terms of the project officer role, Ting, would you be able to just give a little bit of an overview of the types of work that you do within the operational work stream, and also what sort of background do you think we may be looking for people for the project officer?
Yeah, definitely. So some of the things that I've been involved in the operational readiness team include several recruitment related activities, such as developing a social media plan with external communications team, or like thinking through how we can design an internship and drafting a proposal for that. I think there's no specific requirements in terms of like degree or other qualifications needed for this role, but just say, for example, if people are creative, that would be very good for like helping with the social media plans, stuff like that. So just a range of transferable skills and like people who can analytical and can think through like the risks and possible mitigations for when drafting like proposals for how we run things. So yeah, just a range of skills.
And I would just sort of add to that we're not looking for people who necessarily have specific qualifications in relation to project management, or that this may be desirable. And what we're interested in is people who have the ability to track a project, to develop project plans, manage milestones, keep us all on track, and think about our reporting, our governance, and our risk functions as well. So there's a couple of more specific recruitment-based questions I was hoping, Charlotte, I could come to you on. So in particular, there was a question regarding nationality. So there's one about specific nationalities and also whether or not refugees are eligible to apply. Are you able to pick up on that one, please?
Thank you, Vicky. I did notice a couple more further down as well with regards to sort of nationality. I think just sort of to cover it a little bit more broadly, to work in civil service, we do have civil service nationality rules. So I noticed that someone had asked about applications from European nationals. I mean, that's not something that we can just say yes or no to, because again, it depends on people's individual status and, you know, and what their current sort of right to work in the UK is. So yes, applicants will need to comply with the civil service nationality rules. I would suggest that candidates probably email us with their specific inquiries in relation to that, and we can give individual advice. We have noted in the principal digital market advisor role that there may be an ability to sponsor visas. I think someone's asked that question as well. So we have included that. And if that person that has the inquiry wants to send us a, you know, specific inquiry, you know, I can follow up directly, anything in relation to right to work or nationality.
Thank you. Just staying with you, Charlotte, if it's okay. There was also a question regarding security clearance for these roles, as well as a query regarding whether part-time, hybrid and remote work is possible. I wonder if you could capture those ones.
Yes,
together.
absolutely. So the majority of them are SC clearance, will require SC clearance. So baseline checks will be completed in the first instance, and then candidates will progress on to SC clearance. So yes, I think most of the roles, it will say on the role profile, do require SC clearance. In terms of the hybrid working, we do have hybrid working. It can be vary slightly currently on location, but our sort of company sort of standard policy is 40% office attendance, and you know, employees are sort of set up to work from home and, you know, to work in the office. We have lots of sort of flexible working spaces at the office as well. In terms of the actual amount of hours, again, that could come down to specific requirements. So, you know, if anyone is already working within government on sort of some kind of flexible working arrangement, then they could raise that as an inquiry. I know as a team we'll look to be as flexible as we can, but it may be that, you know, people would need to sort of specify what they're looking for.
Perfect, thank you. And I think I would sort of reiterate Charlotte's message there, that if you do have a specific query, particularly regarding nationality status, please do drop us an email and we'll be able to advise more on specific circumstances. Turning slightly back to types of work, I wonder if I could ask a couple of questions to our panel. So firstly, there was a question around whether advisors work collaboratively on tasks or whether or not work is divided across the board and everybody works individually. I wonder if I could ask a couple of you just to reflect on your experiences in this area. So Matthew, if it's okay, if I can come to you first in terms of your experiences working across teams and within sort of multiple projects at the same time.
Yeah, I'd say the work's incredibly collaborative, definitely on that side of things. So I guess an example of something I was doing earlier today, you putting together a briefing for an important meeting. I'm not going to write out the full briefing myself. I might go away and do some desk research on whatever company we're meeting and sort of previous engagement we've had with them. But it's then a case of tagging in various colleagues from across the team to add in their input, maybe sort of a summary of the case they're working on, or a sort of summary from their specific technical background or economic background. And then, yeah, so sort of on a case team, they're very much sort of, you'll have some economists, you'll have some lawyers, you'll have some people from the digital markets unit, so a range of backgrounds, and it's all very collaborative, and there's a lot of co-authoring of documents and really bouncing ideas off each other and trying to bring the best out of different perspectives.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Robin now as well, about your experience working on multiple projects and how that has been managed, and whether or not you regularly work across multiple areas, whether or not you focus on a single.
Yeah, so I suppose that really does depend. It depends on your preference. It depends on the kind of wider needs of the team. In the 4 most recent years, I have almost entirely had a 50-50 split between 2 projects. So, for example, whilst working in previous roles, I would have a kind of policy remit that I was responsible for whilst working on casework. Over the last year in particular, when I was working on the Privacy Sandbox, I was also balancing that with leading the kind of strategic input to the DRCF, and particularly in that, in terms of like whether that's collaborative or not. I mean, within the Privacy Sandbox case, you are working with colleagues from a number of different professions, where you need insights from lawyers, delivery professionals who are thinking more broadly about kind of how we progress the work as a whole, whether that's about kind of project planning, risk management, but also wider stakeholder engagement that Matthew referred to. But it's also about thinking through the more kind of analytical, complex issues around the data scientists having expertise that will input and inform how you engage with it. I suppose on the work that I'm doing at the moment, in particular, there goes no day where I don't work with either other members within my own team or with other teams, because there's constant interdependencies between the thinking about how might we best prepare for how we might use our powers on day one with, well, actually, what will the legal framework be? Will we be required to publish guidance? What will that guidance look like? How might we be able to feed in and think about those types of questions? So there's constant kind of engagement, and you definitely don't operate in a silo. I suppose one of the things that is really quite interesting working with the CMA, working within the CMA, and I don't know whether others have similar reflections, is the degree of consultation that operates like throughout the process of any project. So like it's like very important that you make sure that you have other teams on site, that you engage with them, because a lot of the work that we do really does depend on other colleagues inputting. I mean, Will might have reflections on that as well, but kind of he can attest to the amount of engagement that goes on across office.
Thank you. And actually, Will, I will come to you in terms of one of the other questions as well that's mentioned in the chat about how the DMU is structured and how we organise ourselves around projects, and whether or not those are teams that are formed around particular issues or areas, or whether or not we have a more permanent structure. I wonder if you could offer some reflections there.
Yes, thanks, Vicky. I'll do that. I also just wanted to emphasise very firmly the sort of desire for the team to embrace a culture of flexible working, and just to flag the sort of mixture of, we've got some part-time people, we've got some compressed hours people. We actually have, well, one of the directors that reports to me is actually 2 directors job sharing between Manchester and Edinburgh. So hopefully to be a bit of a sense of the real attempt to try and embrace lots of different styles of working and arrangements and so forth. And yes, to Robin's question, pretty much everything we do is a very joint effort. You know, it's really multidisciplinary. So, you know, most things we do, particularly in this area, require a combination of sort of legal disciplines, economics, technical issues, policy, sort of project management and delivery, and it really is all those things are really a team effort, and almost any team that we have here is that sort of has that sort of cross-disciplinary structure, which then also goes to the question about the structure of the DMU team. Now, actually, this is something that's it's evolving somewhat, because the team is growing as we prepare for the new function, and we've got, I suppose, a mixture of more programmatic activity and some more specifically project-based teams. So, for example, we have a team that's working very closely with the government on the legislation and the parliamentary process. That's a sort of ongoing programme of work. We then got a whole project around the guidance that we would expect to need to produce. So also related to that policy work. We've then got all of the work around the sort of operational, strategic operational planning that Ting and Vicky, I think, referred to, again, building for this new function. But then we also have people in the DMU working on and indeed leading some of the specific set piece projects that we have. So, for example, the initial review of AI foundation models that I mentioned. We also have people working on various of the other cases, competition and consumer enforcement, and so forth. So a real mix of structures, and we are very much in the process of evolving all of that as we prepare for the new function when it comes around following the parliamentary process.
Thank you, Will. Sticking with day-to-day work and the activities of the team, I wondered, Ting, there was a specific question for you in the chat, and whether or not you were able to give a little bit more insight into your day-to-day activities and the types of tasks that you would usually be involved in.
Yeah, so for example, a day in my life could start in the morning, checking my emails, predicting my to-do list. Then we might have a team meeting. So we have DMU digital, like the whole digital markets unit team. We have team meetings every 1 or 2 weeks, and right before the team meetings, we have cake time. So we come together and like spend some time together. And then we might have the team meeting where we discuss any updates on our work, or someone might deliver a presentation on a specific area or work that they've been involved in. Then I might then spend some time doing some reading on, for example, these days I've been reading a bit on the online, the digital advertising market study, to get involved a bit on understanding how certain digital sectors work. And then I might have a meeting with my line manager to discuss how my week has been, any issues that I've been encountering, any development opportunities that I would like to pursue. Then I might then work on, for example, and doing some thinking on the learning and development opportunities that we can provide for our team and help develop those materials. And yeah, so those are the activities.
Thank you very much, Ting. I'm going to move now to a couple of questions that relate to location, in particular location outside of London. There's one question specifically regarding salary. So Charlotte, if I could ask you to come in to confirm the salary and whether or not there is a difference between London and other offices. But I was also going to ask Robin, if you could reflect a little bit in a moment on the blend of skills and roles in the offices outside of London. So I don't know if you're able to speak to your Edinburgh experience. And then Charlotte, I'll also come back to you in terms of the size of the other offices. There's a specific request regarding Belfast. So just to give you a flavour of what's coming towards you. So Charlotte, if you wouldn't mind picking up on the questions regarding salary and also the location, the size of the relative offices.
Yes, thank you, Vicky. So the salaries that are advertised for each role, they're not location specific. So whether you're based in Edinburgh, Belfast, London, Manchester, the same salary range is available for you. There is a starting point. There is a small range on each advert, so that should be quite clear. But any follow-up questions on salary, please do let us know. In terms of office size, so London obviously holds is our biggest space and holds the most staff members. Edinburgh is currently probably our sort of second largest team. I believe we have about 50 or 60. Robin, you might want to correct me there. Based in Edinburgh. Manchester is really, I think, the really exciting, because that's of course where we're quite new in Manchester and we're going to be really growing the team. So I think it's a case of sort of watching the space for seeing how Manchester grows and how more people move into roles there. Belfast and Cardiff offices are quite small in relation, but again, they are growing and we've had more people join. We've got members in our own recruitment team now based in Cardiff, Manchester as well, which is all very exciting. So all our offices they're all growing in size.
Robin, I'll come to you next in terms of the mix of skills and the different sort of roles that you see within the Edinburgh office. And then if I could ask you to come in to speak a little bit more about that future trajectory and growth within Manchester.
Yeah, so just within the Edinburgh office, all of our offices have a mix of staff working across a mix of directorates. You will have people who work on digital activities like myself, but you will so on a day-to-day basis, I also have colleagues who work within our data unit. So we have data scientists, behavioral insight scientists, as well as a range of lawyers, economists who work on a various range of projects. That might be both kind of like core DMU activity, if you will, as well as wider casework. So there is a real mix on the digital side. We also have a reasonably large presence of people working in other teams, for example, the Office of the Internal Market, Subsidy Advice Unit, as well as our other range of functions that we have. So it really is irrespective of which of the offices you decide to move to, if you're successful as an applicant, you will meet colleagues who will work across a range of things. We'll talk more about the Manchester office, but I mean that really is meant to be the centre for the digital hub. So we do expect to have kind of quite a growth there, I'd imagine, over the next year or two.
I will. Perfect opportunity for you to come in there.
Yeah, thanks, Vicky, and thanks, Robin. Yes, the Manchester office is really tended to be a really big part of the CMA's future footprint. Really quite a significant group of staff there, both as part of the DMU, but also more broadly. So, like with the Edinburgh office, as Robin was describing, you'd expect to have company from a whole range of teams around the CMA. And someone was asking specifically about where the actual office is. It's a bit of a complicated answer because there are 3 stages to that. As in, there's an office we have now, which is shared with one of the government departments, really right in the centre of town. There's a sort of interim next stage, which is out towards Salford, but not very far out towards Salford. And then the sort of final home for the CMA is in the process of being built, as is another of these government hubs on the south side of the city. Again, very close to the centre, very close to Piccadilly. And I've actually been involved in the speccing of that office, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And it's brand new, so should really be an excellent place to be and nice and convenient for the city centre.
Thank you. So we've got a few more minutes for questions. I'm going to pick up a couple more focused on the recruitment process itself. So if I could ask Charlotte, there's a mention that there may be an exercise or a presentation that's required. Are you able to provide a little bit of more detail about when candidates will hear about that and what we can be expecting? And there's also a question while we're on location about the point at which people need to specify their preferences regarding location.
Well, thank you. So on the locations point, you should be able to specify. I think you can give up to 3 locations in preference order as part of your application. So it will be inbuilt in your application and that will be picked up. If it's something that you want to add, candidates want to add to their personal statement, of course they can do. But it will get picked up if they've used this sort of the selection boxes on their application. In terms of the assessment, so candidates that are shortlisted for interview will receive more information. And I know that for some of the roles there might be a presentation and that topic will be confirmed with the interview invite. I believe I think for one of the assessments it might be something that candidates will come to and not be required to do any preparation for. So I think further information will be provided and it will be clear for applicants progressing to the interview stage. And I think at that stage, if there are any follow-ups, again, recruitment team are on hand to sort of help talk through and of course support with any reasonable adjustments as well.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. So I'm going to take a sort of blended final question because there are a couple of questions regarding sort of distinction between some of the roles. And obviously we've talked a little bit about the different roles that are on offer, and there was also a question around line management. So I'm going to attempt to try and answer those collectively myself. So on the line management question, we are keen to offer people opportunities for line management and for line management responsibility, particularly at the senior digital markets advisor, senior project officer and the principal digital markets advisor. But it is something that we look for people to be able to have opportunities to lead projects and to lead aspects within a project across really all grades. So there are those opportunities for leadership, for task management, and with line management, something that we increasingly look to offer to people as they progress up through those roles within the DMU. There was also a question regarding the difference between the digital markets advisor and the digital markets project officer role. And so there we're looking for people in the digital markets advisor role who have a real interest and a desire to explore the policy side of things regarding digital markets technologies. The areas that Matthew in particular outlined, I think would be the types of responsibilities and the types of skills that we'd be looking for in regards to that role. The project officer role, I think the areas that Ting has outlined in terms of more administrative type responsibilities, thinking about project planning, thinking about providing support into our governance functions, thinking about risk management, thinking about business continuity, probably the areas that would be more likely to fall within that specific role. But the thing I really want to emphasize is that across the whole team, there are opportunities for people to get involved in a range of projects. We're very keen to support people's individual development needs, individual areas of interest. And people do have a tendency to work on a number of projects at one time or to move from one project to another project. So there are opportunities for people to be involved in a wide variety and diverse areas of work. So hopefully that also helps to address that. So we're coming to the end of our session. Just wanted to very quickly pop up a quick reminder about the roles that we have available at the moment, together with a reminder of the closing dates. And I think it is worth just noting that those closing dates are different for the different roles. So please bear that in mind when you're thinking about your application. There was also a question in the chat about whether or not we anticipate future rounds of recruitment. And I think I did also want to emphasise that obviously as the legislation progresses through Parliament, as we continue to prepare for the new regime, we do expect to expand our teams further. So if people are interested in future opportunities, we do have a QR code that may or may not work on a screen, but also a URL. So if you are interested in signing up to hear alerts for future opportunities and updates on our work over the next sort of year to 18 months, please do so. That's an opportunity there might be some slightly different roles available in future rounds. We do hope that the information that we have provided today has been useful. Hopefully we have raised your interest in applying for these roles. It really is a great time to join the DMU, and I think we have got some exciting opportunities and some brilliant opportunities for career development for people as well. So I think I'll probably conclude just by thanking the panelists who have spoken today, and thanking you all for attending and for expressing interest, and to just reiterate one of the messages that Charlotte shared at the beginning, which was if you do have any questions, there is contact detail and contact information on the adverts, and please don't hesitate to get in touch. And in particular, I know that we sort of signposted in relation to questions around nationality, so please do get in touch if you do have any questions for us. And thank you all for joining today.